Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Brendan Donahoe, and it's time for a review of the new Sam Smith record, The Thrill of It All. Singer-songwriter Sam Smith made waves in the music industry in 2014 with his release In the Lonely Hour. I was a pretty big fan of that record. It was a little short, a little bit repetitive, but overall, really solid debut. And he's coming at us again here in 2017 with The Thrill of It All. Clocks in a little bit longer than In the Lonely Hour, and we're going to take it one track at a time, and then at the end we're going to take a look at maybe what he did wrong, what he did right, and give it a rating. So we're going to start with track 1, Too Good at Goodbyes.
I'm way too good at goodbye. I'm way too good at goodbye. I'm way too good.
So the first track of this record really gets you in the mood, and if you're a Sam Smith fan, I think you'll be happy from the very first sound you hear. Opens really soft, very soulful and spiritual with a really good piano, just kind of chords, and his vocals are back on display. The production on his vocals is great. His vocals themselves are fantastic. Really just a highlight already on the record. This will also be the first introduction you get into the choir, which kind of becomes a recurring theme on this album, and which was an excellent choice because it really highlights the soulfulness and the sound that you can already hear in his vocal, and it highlights that even more. There's a really good quiet outro to end this record, and the sound is very unique for pop music, which is something that pop music could really use as a unique voice. So really good start to the record, and we'll move on now to track 2, Say It First.
Say it first. I need to hear you say those words.
Alright, so Say It First follows, and it's not nearly as good as Too Good at Goodbyes, but it's also a pretty impressive track. The biggest problem here is the lyrics. This is a complaint that I think I have over the entire project, but I don't know that Sam's lyrics really live up to the sound he has, or at least are consistent. But other than that, there's a really cool atmosphere to this song. Really sets the mood for the album that's going to keep continuing. Sets up for big builds. I think the chorus is impressive. Overall, it sounds very good. Just could have been a lot better, especially with better lyrics. So now let's move on to track 3, One Last Song. So above all, this song is fun. The intro is fantastic. I love the jump cuts. I love the way that it's kind of spliced together, almost in a sloppy way. The beat drop and the hip-hop feel to the rhythm. On other parts of this record, that gets a little bit annoying, but here it sounds really good. He almost goes for a Motown kind of feel here, which I think is a great choice. It really fits his voice and kind of complements his style quite a bit. The concept here, lyrically, is actually quite a bit better. And so, again, almost like he's responding to me. He really does a lot better job on his lyrics here. The chorus is catchy. You'll be singing it for a long time. The instruments, really wide instrumental palette on this song. The pronunciation on his words, it gets a little much sometimes. But for the most part, this is a very good, fun song. This is probably the first upbeat, fun track on the record, and it does a very good job. So now we're going to move on to track 4, Midnight Train.
So I pick up the pieces, I get on the midnight train. I got my reasons.
So we're 4 songs in, and it's already sounding very good. The atmosphere is very consistent over the entire record, and it continues onto this track. The verses are a little bit wordier, and I think that's a good thing, and it sounds good. But when it comes down to it, if I had one complaint about this track, it's that the verses add almost nothing. They're just kind of, little cliche, little phrases that you throw out that just kind of add to the feel of the song, but don't actually tell a story. The chord progression here, again, so good. The chord progressions on this record are so much fun, and they use very old tricks. I mean, there's nothing world-changing about this. I mean, they're using old tricks of throwing in a seventh or playing the major chord and then switching to the minor version of that chord. These are old school tricks that really work well. It's very impressive that he can actually pull this off as well. I think most artists, this would come off as cheesy, and it definitely teeters on the edge of that, between eccentric and just cheesy. But he really pulls it off, and it really sounds good. Another issue that I have with this track, I would say, is that it could be longer. I mean, it's only 3.5 minutes. And he's a radio play artist. I mean, this is what he does. He looks for tracks that can play on the radio easily. But I would really, really like it, if he'd throw another verse in there, throw something else in there, at least for the record, so that there's more to it. But overall, good song. So now moving on to track 5, Burning.
Yes, I've been burning, such a burden, this flame on my chest.
Alright, so this is a very good song. I do have to draw the line when he rhymes burnin' with burden. Those words don't rhyme. But other than that, the intro to this track is a cappella, no instruments at all, and it really just highlights the fact that we're all here to hear this man's voice. Which I think is a great decision. The verses here are finally unique lyrically, and they really add something to a really interesting storyline. And there's a fantastic reference to tobacco and to smoking cigarettes in this that I think is just really, really good lyrics. The intro or the outro with the down chorus is getting a little old. I mean, he does it on almost every song. So if I have any complaints, it would be that. But just about everything about this track is very good, and one of the best things that he does here, and he does it in other places too, but it really shows up on this track, is his runs vocally are so clean and crisp and controlled. Even more so, I mean, he's really improved on that since his last record, where he used to kind of just run off into nothing, and it would get kind of muddy and stuff. But this album, when he does runs from note to note, I mean, they are crisp and clean and very, very good. It shows that he's really been working on his vocal, and this is a great track to highlight the halfway point. So we'll move on now to track 6, Him. Alright, so by far my favorite track on this record comes in at track 6, Him. The topic, right off the bat, ambitious. He's this tells the story of him speaking to his father. He says, "Holy Father, we need to talk," and coming out as gay. But the interesting thing here, lyrically, is that the father represents many people. It represents his actual father. It represents his priest, his father in the church, and it represents the Holy Father being God. Very, very creative lyrics. The chord progression is perfect here. The lyrics are impressive. The choir comes right in powerfully. Everything about this song is fantastic. It is powerful. It is very personal to him, and you can tell that he's writing really from his heart. And I just cannot get enough of this track. After I listened to it the first few times to review this record, this was one of the few tracks that I found myself going back to over and over again just throughout my day. So absolutely love this track, best one on the album. So now we're going to move to track 7, Baby You Make Me Crazy. Baby, you make me So following probably the best song on the record is Baby You Make Me Crazy, and it's a huge change from what we just heard. Big horns, big Motown feel, and a real kind of upbeat, fun atmosphere. Not the best lyrics, to be honest with you. The lyrics on this track just feel like filler. I mean, they just feel like the whole song was written as a melody, and then they just kind of made up lyrics to fit in there. I don't know if that's true, but that's how it feels. Really here Sam is just showing off vocally. I mean, almost in a conceited way. I mean, he's really just putting his vocals on display as he should, because he is a fantastic vocalist, and this really, really adds to the track. The verses go in a 6-bar format, which I thought was an interesting choice. They use an organ here. The melody's infectious. Big horns, nice big fat organ sound, and the choir is absolutely perfect on this track. I almost would have called this my least favorite track, actually, just because there's not much to it. If it weren't for the choir's perfect performance on the choruses, that really just brings you into this song. Even though it's a little cheesy, even though it's kind of indulgent, you can't not love it because of how fantastic that choir sounds. So now we'll move on to track 8, No Peace.
Oh, I can't get no sleep, and I sure won't find no peace.
So going into this track, I was a little bit skeptical of a feature. I was a little worried that this would turn into some kind of a hip-hop sound, a little too much. But overall, I think it goes over really well. The feature serves to kind of break up the monotony of hearing the exact same voice throughout the whole record. The atmosphere stays consistent. They really don't break from that. There's a really, really cool line where she says, I'll light up a cigarette and drink it down till there's nothing left. And I thought that was interesting lyricism. The end of the chorus, where it kind of just name drops the title as if it's some kind of a punchline, I really don't like that. This is something that a lot of pop records do, where they build up, and country does it a lot too. They build up and then they drop the title of the song like it's a punchline or something. I really wish they wouldn't do that. And the beat is a little bit too hip hop, a little bit too much. But there's really cool transitions especially from bridges, from the bridge to the chorus, and I love the chord progression on the bridge. The vocals from both artists are fantastic, and I didn't love the ending of the track. Overall, this is probably my least favorite track on the record, but it's still good. I mean, there's still some really good stuff about it. So let's move on now to track 9, Palace.
Never built this palace, but real love is never a waste of time.
All right, so Palace is a very good song. This is one of the first times, actually it might be the only time on this record that we see a guitar take front and center, and almost no other instrumentals for the most part. There's a rhythmic change from the verse to chorus, and it's a little bit weird, but it sounds good. And the lyrics are very visual, and it's a really creative idea for a song. Other than that, there's not much to say about this track, and I hate that because it is a really good song. There's just not much of note to it. It's just a good song. So we will move on now to the final track, track 10, Pray.
Won't you call me? Can we ever run a world, please? Let's talk about freedom.
So Pray is the only track that is marked as explicit, and I think if that projects any message, it's that this track is meant for people who listen to the record. It's not even meant for the radio. There's a very different sound, very different lyrics to it. This is the only other song that kind of touches on religion. But I think, again, the choir's super effective. He's just showing off his vocals, really putting them front and center as he should. And the really cool bridge, I think, adds quite a bit to the track. This is a great ending, and for a lot of people, I think this is their favorite, and I can see why. I mean, there's a strong argument to be made that this is the best track on the album, and I would not argue against that too much. It's not my personal favorite, but I've heard a lot of people say that this is their favorite, and I definitely understand where they come from. So there you have it. There's track by track rundown of Sam Smith's The Thrill of It All. So now let's take a look at what he did right and what he did wrong. So let's start with the downsides on this record, because there's not too many of them. The biggest is by far the lyrics. The lyricism on this record is a little bit lazy. It doesn't really take the record anywhere. And I think that's an issue because one of the people I've heard Sam Smith be compared to in an odd way, actually, is Hozier. Hosier's record, his only record, was incredible, not only because of fantastic vocals, but fantastic lyrics. And I think if Smith had sat down and really worked hard to write better lyrics here, I mean, this would be almost a perfect album. It's a little bit repetitive is another issue, not quite as much as the last record, but it's a little bit repetitive. The songs are a little too short. He constantly ends every song by just a down chorus, just this chorus with not as much big instrumentals, and it sounds really good when that's on the radio for one song, but when you hear it 10 times in a row, it gets a little bit old. There's only 2 songs on this entire record that are not about love, and those are both about religion, and one of them is still kind of about love. So if anything, I would suggest that he maybe work on diversifying what he writes about. So now let's move on to the good, because there's quite a bit of it. The atmosphere on this record is consistent, it is very good, and it's really fun to kind of sit in and listen to. And they never really deviate from it. There's a huge instrumentation palette here. Unlike the Weezer record, which tried it and really failed, this instead feels like these instruments have a place and that their part was written for them, and I love it. The vocals are fantastic. Sam Smith is such a good vocalist, one of the best out there in pop music right now. The choir that comes in over and over again on this record really adds a lot, and like I said, this helps with the atmosphere. The choir doesn't just come in for one song where you think, oh, they tried something new. I mean, this is something that happens over and over again. The music, the actual instrumentation is awesome. The chord progressions are great and fun to listen to and really move the whole album along, and every track really has impressive chord progressions. And the decision to look at more of a Motown sound, which really doesn't come out at all in his first record, but here he decided, well, let's look at what we can do with this sound, and it was a great decision. His voice lends itself so well to this kind of sensitive Motown, which is really, I don't know if that's a real genre, but it really sounds very good. So if I had to give this record a rating, I would say a strong 6 to maybe a light 7. So yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Tell me what I got wrong, what I got right, and what I should review next. If you like this video, share, subscribe. I'm going to try to do a few more of these in the next couple weeks. So keep an eye out, and happy listening.